Formula One races keep turning into live movie sets, and now that there's a teaser trailer to go with the new F1 film starring Brad Pitt, we thought it was time to share some of the background stories that we found by being lucky enough to see these live movie sets in action, because this film's being shot where we work, where Formula One races. So it's time to actually delve into that a little bit. You've seen the teaser trailer, or you'll see it with us right now, and we're going to tell you some of the making of it, and also some of what you might be able to expect when the full film comes out next year.
Okay. Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, Aston, now McLaren, all have a speed on the straights. Our shot is battling in the turns. We need to build our car for combat.
How am I supposed to make that safe?
Who said anything about safe?
So danger sells, we know that in Formula One. Drive to Survive, the very title of the Netflix docuseries, tells you that. It's surprising in a way. Safety is normally an inviolable part of Formula One, but you know, with what this is, I guess they're going to let that slide. The key thing that you need to know here in terms of where this was shot is obviously this is a dramatic scene shot between the actors. A lot of what we've seen has obviously been the trackside stuff, where they've been doing lots and lots of on-track recording with Pitt driving the car, Damson Idris driving the car, and professionals as well doing other sessions. But they've also, as you can clearly see, been filming the actual dramatic stuff around that. This year, with the trackside stuff, they're still filming on track. We saw that at Silverstone at the British Grand Prix this year as well, but they're filming a lot more dramatic scenes trackside as well. We're going to get into that, I'm sure, as this teaser goes on. So we've already had a quick montage there of shots that show the immersiveness of this film. All of these shots actually captured on site at real Formula One races. You saw the pit wall, for example. The team, Apex GP, a fictional 11th team, really was and is a fictional 11th team. They've created an entire one. They've got a massive hospitality unit in the paddock, which I think is an old Williams one. Daniel Ricciardo clocked that on the Thursday at the British Grand Prix and was quite surprised by how impressive it was. They've got their own garage set up, 2 garages for the 2 cars, and as you saw, the pit wall there. So this isn't all super duper CGI or green screen or anything like that. This is a team that actually, well, was in Formula One at the 2023 British Grand Prix, at the 2024 British Grand Prix, and having slightly smaller presences at various tracks in between then. That car's run in Hungary, it's run at Zandvoort, at Spa, Las Vegas, Abu Dhabi, it's run at Suzuka this year, it's going to run in Mexico later this year. So the immersiveness, I'm probably going to use that word a lot by accident in this, but that is what they're trying to recreate. The actual feeling of being in the paddock, and the best way of doing that isn't a closed set and lots of extras and faking it. It's actually to do it for real, which is pretty impressive.
Buddy, you're a boy, make a big noise, playing in the street, gonna be a big man someday, you got mud on your face.
So we've had loads of car footage there, as you can tell. This teaser trailer doesn't give away much of the plot, which is pretty much by design. But the reason it has so much car footage early on, one is obviously to scream that it's a film about F1, even though the car that they're driving isn't an F1 car. It's a modified F2 car made to look like F1. It was modified by Mercedes Technology Division and Carlin. Now, the reason that they're doing this is they're super proud of everything that they've shot. They've used high-tech cameras looking back at the drivers and capturing the onboards, capturing it from just outside the car as well, to show, to photograph, to film cars being driven in the way that even us, who have watched F1 racing and other forms of motorsport for years, haven't seen cars shot this way, certainly not in this fidelity. They're really proud of it, and they're proud of the fact that Pitt and Idris have been driving the cars, that they've gone through months and months of training to drive these at competent levels. Now, they're not going to go out and be winning F2 races anytime soon if they jumped in the real thing, let alone F1, but it's all part of making it as real as possible, to capture that sort of feeling of being inside the car. And what's this, like half a minute into the trailer already, 40 seconds, and you already get a sense of just how quite cool some of the action sequences on track are going to be in this film.
You big disgrace, kicking your can all over the place, singing, we will rock you, singing.
This scene's quite cool. They've not been snuck in after the fact digitally. They were actually snuck into place at the 2023 British Grand Prix as part of the lineup during the national anthem. You wouldn't have seen it on the world feed, the broadcast. The cameras were quite clever with what they showed, what they didn't, where they moved away. as the camera moved back across the rest of the lineup, the normal grid, that's when they snuck Pitt and Idris into place at the end. They then walked down to the back of the grid, and I think they might have shot a dramatic scene down there as well. They certainly were this year, which involved, I think it was Pitt and Bardem that I could see at the back of the grid. I love this for a few reasons, but mainly that those of us that know that those are the real drivers, it's kind of like a lovely little Easter egg for us. But I also love the fact that there are going to be non-racing fans, non-F1 fans watching this that have no idea that those are real drivers. They'll think they're just extras or, support members of the cast. So I like that. But it's a good example, actually, what we saw this year, an emphasis on the dramatic scenes that they're filming at Silverstone. So there was as I said, I think a Pitt Bardem scene at the back of the grid, which I think is sort of hinted at in this trailer as well. So they must have shot something to do with this last year. But the other thing that they did this year, which was really ambitious, was that the two drivers in this film, Pitt and Idris's characters, did interviews in the mix zone, the media pen, after qualifying and the race. That's where the broadcast media and the written media gather. We could see it from our vantage point while we waited for the drivers to come over to us. The crew members had their own slot in the mix zone, just like any other broadcaster. And then after qualifying in the race, Pitt and Idris would come over and speak to them, do an interview, clearly for a scene in the film. And this was so surreal because you had drivers that had stinker qualifying sessions or horrible races, doing these kind of almost crestfallen TV interviews, and in the background you could just see Brad Pitt or Damson Idris walking around filming. So quite surreal, ambitious, because there's not a lot of time in those mix zones and they can be quite chaotic, but just shows how committed they are, shall we say, to that element of actually being in real world F1 and doing things actually live in the paddock.
Sing it!
So, as I said, lots of actual real-world footage in this film. They've really kept to a minimum, I think, the use of digital trickery and technology to impose the cars and characters into real-world F1. This is probably the best example of how they've blended real-world footage and high-tech additions and splicing. So this, I think, was actually captured from the 2023 Belgian Grand Prix on Pierre Gasly's Alpine. They had a much higher resolution camera fitted to that car than is normally run in F1 races. Still had to tick all of the boxes in regulatory terms for the FIA. And then what they've done, they've captured that footage from that car, and then they've skinned the Apex car and Pitt's character on top of that. You'll see that a couple of times, I think, in this trailer, but this is a really good example of it because, well, Eau Rouge, for F1 fans, racing fans, is probably the most famous corner in the world. And to have that kind of high fidelity on board going up it, it's probably going to be one of the best action shots, I think, of the film in terms of putting you in the driver's seat, which is one of the things that they want to achieve with this.
Everybody, we will rock you.
Nothing really to say there other than hello good to Steiner. It amazes me the popularity and fame that this guy has. It amazes him as well. We joke about it all the time because he still turns up in F1 races now. But yeah, a nod to his Drive to Survive fame and celebrity there. But just objectively hilarious to see Gunther Steiner pop up in a Hollywood teaser trailer. So you saw just a second ago when Idris's character comes into the pits, and you're seeing it here, that rear-facing camera. Now, F1 fans, racing fans, we're not unfamiliar to this concept. Cameras looking back at the drivers. Now, I'm sure a few of you are noticing that they're running clear visors in the daytime. We're going to try and skip past that. This is, again, a use of something, a resolution that we're just not used to seeing, which I think is fantastic. And it leans into the fact that, yes, again, the actors were actually driving these cars. A lot of the shooting was obviously done at Silverstone. Shooting at other tracks, I think a lot of it was done by other drivers, professional racing drivers in these cars. But again, more reminders that, one, the action sequences and the in-car stuff is going to be really cool in this film, but again, a reminder these actors, sorry, are actually driving the cars. So that is quite cool. And the sequence that runs through this, you get a hint of the storyline as well. The real teams, they're just kind of incidental characters, background characters in this film. The drama is going to be contained within the Apex team. I keep mentioning the immersion of this and the fact that they're actually driving the cars. What I quite like about this is if you've seen obviously the original Top Gun movie, but then the sequel Maverick, which the director of this film, Joseph Kosinski, is behind. I think you get that same kind of feeling. It's probably no surprise, really, given the similarity in terms of the creative minds behind it. But that sort of this feeling here, as you're getting closer and closer to him, it kind of there's a level of like intensity behind it, which I think is quite cool. And it's really hard to capture F1 in this way. I've spoken to the people behind the F1 broadcast so many times about how they're trying to add innovations with onboard cameras and the like to just try and put the viewer inside the F1 car. And that's quite tricky. The driver's eye camera is probably the closest that we come, but it's so low resolution. Then when you see this, which, okay, isn't driver's eye, but it's right inside the car, right inside someone actually driving, this is the kind of thing that I think people that aren't familiar with it, I think will get a lot out of it, but I think racing fans will hopefully enjoy it as well. So, the F1 movie, literally the F1 movie, that's the title of the film, F1. A big deal in F1 is the fact that the logo they've let them change the colour. It sounds so stupid, but F1 is such a stickler for this. It's a bit of a hangover from the Bernie Ecclestone era. The fact that it's called F1, though, my understanding is that this is actually what the filmmakers wanted. It was their first choice. It does two things. I think, first of all, from the filmmaker's side, it makes it really clear what this movie's about and the story that they're trying to tell, that it's in the world of Formula One. From F1's side, it's a massive promotional opportunity. The fact that so many people are going to be exposed to this Hollywood blockbuster with this hundreds of millions of dollars behind the production. It's if it goes terribly, the film bombs and it looks absolutely awful, then maybe F1 gets mildly stained by it. But I think the risk is worth the reward when you think of the upside of being associated with something of this proportion and the actual championship name is being used with it. Will the film actually be any good? I don't think you can really tell from this teaser trailer. All I can say from what I've seen behind the scenes and what I've heard from people telling me about it, we've all got sources within the paddock. We've got people that are close to the movie as well that have given us a little bit of background, shall we say. There's not going to be any shortage of trying behind this. The ambition is massive. The quality of the footage that they're capturing, which I think comes across massively in this teaser trailer, really shows how hard they're trying to capture the authenticity of being in the world of Formula One. They've been fly on the wall at a lot of races for the last 12 months. It's not going to be a documentary. It's not going to be Netflix. There's going to be a lot of drama. There's going to be a storyline maybe you don't fully believe, but give it a chance. I think if this doesn't work, it's not going to be because the way it's depicted F1 that's going to be the problem.